They say redlining ended in 1968. The maps were pulled from the walls, the ink faded, and the signs that once said, "You don't belong here," had to come down. But maps have a way of staying in people's heads, and in budgets, algorithms, and appraisals. So tonight, I want to talk about what happened after redlining supposedly ended, because the lines didn't disappear, they just moved. What's good, family? You're listening to My Black American Commentary. I'm Ann, a descendant of the enslaved, rooted in South Carolina, bringing you commentary on social issues, politics, pop culture, history, and family, from a Black American lens. If you're new here, welcome. Pull up a chair. If you're day ones, I see you. Like, share, leave a comment, and subscribe. Let's grow this conversation. This topic was inspired by the Jubilee's One Black Radical versus 20 Black Conservatives, featuring Amanda Seales. During this episode, there was a first-generation young Black man with parents from Angola who made a shocking statement that he didn't believe redlining existed. Within that dialogue, a fact check popped up, stating the practice was outlawed in 1968. That fact check is what inspired me to make this topic my first episode. Tonight's episode, After the Map Was Erased, Systemic Oppression Post-Redlining. We're going to break down how the end of legal redlining didn't end the barriers. It redesigned them. Redlining was the practice, written into policy and practice, of grading neighborhoods largely by race and ethnicity, and deciding who got access to mortgages, insurance, and investment. If your area was shaded red, money was starved from your community. Homes couldn't get loans, businesses couldn't get capital, families couldn't build equity. In 1968, the Fair Housing Act said discrimination in housing was illegal. That mattered. But the damage was already generational, and the systems around housing didn't flip overnight. The same people who held the pens still controlled the clipboards. The policies just learned how to whisper. So after 1968, the oppression didn't vanish, it evolved. Homeownership is the backbone of American wealth. When you're blocked from buying into appreciating neighborhoods, or the value of your home is assessed lower because of who lives there or what it looks like, you're blocked from wealth. That's not an accident, it's a feedback loop. There's a phrase for it now, the appraisal gap. Two comparable homes, two different valuations, and the main difference is race or neighborhood stigma. Lower appraisals mean smaller loans and less equity. Less equity means fewer options for college, entrepreneurship, or weathering a crisis. And when it's time to sell, you start behind. Then came predatory lending. After the law said you have to offer mortgages fairly, some lenders pivoted to how they offered them, steering Black borrowers into higher cost loans, even when they qualified for better terms, fees stacked on fees, adjustable rates like traps. When the 2008 crash hit, Black wealth, often concentrated in homes, was hit hardest. You can end a law, but you can't end a balance sheet with a signature. If redlining was a red pen, Zoning is a velvet rope. Large swaths of cities are zoned for single-family homes only, often the pricier kind, which locks out affordable housing and keeps neighborhoods exclusive without ever saying the word race. Then there's gentrification. Investment returns to neighborhoods after decades of disinvestment. But without protections, the people who held the line through the lean years get pushed out by rising rents, taxes, and new rules written by folks who just arrived. Culture becomes a costume, and the corner store becomes a boutique. And remember urban renewal and highway building? A lot of that cut straight through Black communities, destroying businesses, churches, and social networks. The concrete is still there, even if the policy has a new name. Schools are funded by local property wealth in a lot of places. If your neighborhood was starved of investment, your schools likely were too. That shows up in class sizes, teacher turnover, and the extracurriculars that open doors. When college becomes the fix, student debt steps in. Black students are more likely to borrow more and take longer to pay it back, not because of lack of ambition, but because family wealth gaps mean there's less cushion to draw from, and wages don't miraculously stretch further just because your loan servicer says they should. Post-redlining oppression in education looks like a school fundraiser where one side sells cupcakes and the other side selling the idea that we deserve equal gyms, libraries, and labs. Same country, different budgets. Let's talk labor. Employment discrimination didn't retire in 1968. It just got better at hiding. Names, zip codes, and school lists become proxies. The network job market, it's who you know, is a gate that swings wide for some and barely opens for others. Now layer in algorithms, resume filters, credit checks, risk scores. If the training data comes from a world soaked in bias, the machine will learn the bias too, and it will call it objective. That can mean fewer interviews, worse loan terms, or higher insurance quotes. Not because you did something wrong, but because a model learned to predict yesterday. Host, measured, thoughtful. Oppression in the 21st century doesn't always shout. Sometimes it's a checkbox you never knew existed. We can't talk about post-redlining without talking about policing and courts. The war on drugs, mandatory minimums, stop and frisk policies, these concentrated surveillance and punishment in Black neighborhoods that had already been mapped as risky. What does that do? It extracts time, money, and the future. Bail you can't afford, fines and fees that compound, records that shadow job and housing applications, families paying for phone calls, commissary and travel, wealth leaking out of households. When you overlay that with school and work, you get a pipeline of interrupted lives. And neighborhoods already disinvested become over-policed and under-resourced, reinforcing the story that they somehow deserve fewer opportunities. Safety is a right. Over-punishment is not safety. Health is where all the systems meet. Maternal mortality, chronic stress, asthma, these aren't random. They're shaped by housing conditions, environmental exposure, hospital access, transportation, and whether you can take time off without losing your job. There's also environmental racism, where factories, highways, and waste sites end up near Black neighborhoods. That's not about individual choices. It's about land use, power, and who gets listened to at zoning meetings. Clean air and clean water are basic, but they're not evenly distributed. And when climate disasters hit, families with less wealth have fewer ways to evacuate, rebuild, or relocate. Insurance costs rise. Predatory disaster capitalism shows up with contracts and cash offers that look helpful today and harmful tomorrow. Access to high-speed internet is the new sidewalk. If you don't have it, you're stepping into traffic. Digital redlining is when providers invest in some neighborhoods and not others, or offer slower, pricier plans where they think folks won't fight back. No internet means no telehealth, no remote work, no homework turned in on time. It's another line drawn with code and cables. So what do we do after the map was erased, but the lines remained? Targeted wealth repair, down payment assistance, fair appraisals with accountability, support for Black-owned banks and credit unions, and investments in community land trusts that keep homes affordable. Zoning reform. End exclusionary zoning. Require affordability and anti-displacement protections when new development comes. Fund right to counsel for tenants facing eviction. Education equity. Modernize school funding so your zip code isn't your destiny. Forgive predatory student debt. Invest in HBCUs and workforce pipelines that pay people to learn. Justice system repair. Eliminate cash bail for low-risk cases. Reduce fines and fees. Expand expungement. Invest in violence interruption and mental health response. Health and environment. Black maternal health initiatives, clinic access, and environmental justice mapping with real enforcement. Disaster recovery that rebuilds for the people who live there, not just for developers. Algorithmic accountability. Audit the models, open the black boxes, and ban the use of biased proxies that recreate red lines in code. Digital equity. Build high-speed internet as public infrastructure, like water and roads, so every household can participate. And beyond policy, practice power. Join the neighborhood board. Show up at the budget hearing, bank Black, and buy local when you can. Mentor, start the mutual aid. Push your workplace to hire, promote, and pay fairly with transparency. The end of redlining wasn't the end of the story. It was a plot twist that forced the lines to learn new shapes, but we've always been cartographers of our own freedom, mapping ways out, around, and through. If this resonated, share it with a friend, leave a review, and drop your thoughts. What lines have you seen and how have you crossed them? I'm Anne, descendant of the enslaved, rooted in South Carolina. This is my Black American commentary. Until next time, keep your head high, your spirit grounded, and your eyes on the horizon.